Good afternoon, and welcome to the first episode of the Monster and the Lighthouse podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Goodwin. This is the pilot episode of the show for this fall semester. As I sit here on Friday, September 12th, just past noon, about 12:30, and we got some interesting stuff to talk about. This podcast is going to be centered on the Red Sox and the Patriots. The monster, of course, signified by the green monster, and the lighthouse signified by the lighthouse at Gillette Stadium at Patriot Place, which the Patriots opened last weekend at and fell 20-13 to the Raiders. A disappointing loss, in my opinion, on a lot of fronts. Now, I know some people were saying, yes, it's just week one, and, the Patriots will eventually get things figured out. And I would normally agree with that, but the only problem is that this weekend, this Sunday in a couple days, they go to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins also did not look great this past Sunday. They lost 33-8 to the Indianapolis Colts. But Miami has historically been, and especially in recent history, has been a place that the Patriots have really struggled at. And they also are winless against Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa is not a great quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but for some reason the Patriots have always had problems with him, and we'll see if that continues again this Sunday. Now the Dolphins, former Pro Bowler, actually Darren Waller has been ruled out for the Dolphins this week on Sunday. Darren Waller, a veteran tight end and a two-time Pro Bowler. He's not going to be playing this week, but the Patriots are also battling injuries of their own. Christian Gonzalez is likely not going to play again this weekend. That could be a big loss for them. I think it was felt, especially on Sunday. I mean, the Raiders just continuously, it felt like when they had to, were just pushing the ball down the field, and the Patriots had no good defense against it. It was unfortunate. Geno Smith, to his credit, has, had kind of a rough start to his career. First few years with the Jets was not very good, but, has rebounded, was a backup for a while, then finally got a chance with the Seahawks and made the most of it. And now he's with the Raiders, in fact, reunited with his old coach, Pete Carroll, over in Las Vegas, and they were able to come away with the win. Geno Smith, in that first game, let's just go through some of the stats here. Not Pat's Razors, Pat's Raiders. Geno Smith was 24 for 34 with 362 yards and a touchdown. He did also throw a pick. And meanwhile, Drake May, 30 for 46, 287 yards, and also a touchdown and a pick alike. And I know this is week one for Drake May. This is the first year that he's going to have full control of this team for the whole season. Last year, he didn't come in until I think it was either week 5 or week 6 against the Texans. The first number of weeks, they started Jacoby Brissett before they finally benched him. But, the Patriots did do a good job, I think, defensively of containing Raiders rookie Ashton Jenney. He did have a touchdown, but 19 carries for just 38 yards. So that, again, pretty stacked up there. Not a whole lot going for him. They really couldn't contain the Raiders duo of tight ends. Brock Bowers, especially 5 catches for 106 yards. Also, it felt like Michael Mayer also kind of hurt them on a few occasions. He had 4 for 38, and on average 9.5 per reception. So the Patriots have to do a better job this week on defense. Miami really stunk it up against the Colts on Sunday. They lost 33-8, of course, and they were down 33-0 before they finally got on the board in the fourth quarter to make it a little bit more respectable. But Tua Tagovailoa, just to give you a glimpse of how his day went, 14 for 23, just 114 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. You contrast that with Daniel Jones, who surprisingly was 22 of 29 for 272 yards and a touchdown. And the Colts also did a pretty good job of a decent job of stacking up Devon Achan. Achan was 7 carries for 55 yards, but Tyreek Hill just 4 catches for 40 yards. So that's about 10 on average. But you'll you'll be fine with holding Tyreek Hill to 4 catches for 40 yards. It's not a big day at all for him. Um, that's if you're going PPR fantasy leagues, that's an 8 point day. So that's not a big day by any stretch of the imagination. And also Jalen Waddle, 4 catches for just 30 yards. So, the Colts did a really good job of containing them. The Patriots are going to have to kind of look at, and I'm sure they have throughout this week, looking at what the Colts did kind of maybe to slow the Dolphins offense down, because they certainly did. And, I don't think it's unfair to say that Tua Tagovailoa is not a great quarterback. He's had a slew of injuries in his career. I mean, he's been unfortunate in a lot of them. But, he's had some really bad head injuries. And, a lot of people were calling for Tua Tagovailoa, including myself, I think, to retire. And not because he's a division rival, but because he's taken so many hits to the head that it's like at a certain point, you almost fear that he's going to go down and it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. I mean, it's already been bad a few times, but it could be even worse like some other time. And I hope for him that doesn't happen. I hope for his family that doesn't happen. But I think the Dolphins are going to really have to start to consider, and it's already been proposed a few times, that the Dolphins are going to have to think about, rebuild. Maybe this is what they're already kind of in the middle of right now. Their window was kind of closed. They did make the playoffs a couple times, but they couldn't make it past the wild card round each time. And, maybe their window is kind of closed. But I want to turn things, of course, back to the Patriots because that's really what this is about. And it was a disappointing first week for the Patriots. I don't think it's unfair to say. I know some people are saying, pump the brakes, it's week one. But there was a lot of hype going into this season for New England. And, I think a lot of people, myself included, viewed last weekend's matchup as a winnable game for the Patriots, a game that they could definitely win. And they just didn't. The first half, they played relatively well. They got down early 7-0. That was not a good start. But they rebounded okay, and they were up 10-7 at halftime. And in fact, they got the ball first to start the second half. So you're thinking maybe, they can go down the field, maybe get a touchdown, maybe make this a 10-point game, and then you're kind of in control the rest of the way. But that did not happen. Drake May threw the interception. And since then, kind of momentum really changed for the Patriots, and obviously not in a good way. They were pretty much shut out in the second half until like the final minutes of the fourth quarter. They kicked a field goal to cut it to a 7-point game. Of course, we're not able to recover the onside kick, and yeah, it was just not a good start for the Patriots to this season. A year with the new head coach and Mike Vrabel, a lot more hype going into the team this year than there was in the past. A lot of people, myself included, had this team at 9 wins going in. And of course, that's still doable, but they're going to have to pick up a win in a game this weekend that I think a lot of us going into the year thought they were going to lose. So to me, it's a reverse split. You thought they were going to beat the Raiders, they didn't. And now we need them to beat the Dolphins on the road because the next week, we go through kind of the rest of this month of September. Of course, we'll be right back here next week talking about the results of the Dolphins game. But next week, in what's going to be a throwback game for the Patriots with their throwback Reds, of course, that I love and a lot of other people love, is they're going to be hosting the Steelers. And again, it's only based off of week one, but the Steelers looked pretty good last week. I mean, they took down the Jets. They scored 34 points. The Patriots, okay, to put this into perspective, the Patriots have not had a game where they've scored at or above, let's say, 38 points since 2022 against the Cleveland Browns. It has been a long time since the Patriots offense has put up a really big offensive day, even in days where they've come away with wins. I mean, so it's really gonna come down to, you consider with the Steelers potentially coming in here now, if the Patriots don't win this week, they're 0-2. That's never a good way to start the year. It's not ideal to start 0-1, but if you come back and you win week 2, you're okay. If they fall this week, they're 0-2. Not only are they 0-2, but then they get the Steelers coming in. And the Steelers, again, we'll see how they look this weekend. But, I mean, the Steelers have the Seahawks this weekend, so that should be an interesting game. Seahawks at Steelers. But we'll see how, the Steelers could be 2-0, and the Patriots could be 0-2. And now you're looking at the potential of the Patriots falling to 0-3 to start the year. And yes, they get the Patriots would get the Carolina Panthers at home in week 4 to close out September. But so that's a game that I think it's fair to expect them to win. But the thing is, even if you win, you're 1-3, and then the next week, week 5, you have a short week, and you go to Buffalo on Thursday Night Football. I mean, so it's just this could be an ugly start to the year for the Patriots, especially with how we thought things were going to go. I think at this point, the best you can hope for with the Patriots is that they go to, is that they start September 2-2. I think it's realistic to expect them to lose to the Steelers at home. I think it is somewhat realistic to expect them to beat Miami this weekend. But again, the thing is, you just don't have history on your side there. And, it's not like Miami's necessarily a great team, but also, like, you didn't play great last week either. So, again, we'll see how things go. But not what you're looking for, I think, to start the year out of the New England Patriots. And I really wasn't able to see much of this game on TV, which I know is not always great for providing, like, commentary about it. But from what I've heard, there didn't seem to be a whole lot of energy in the stadium. Mike Vrabel, I mean, just some of his decisions weren't great in week 1. And again, for a team that's supposed to be kind of revamped, I'm not saying they're there all the way yet. Their offense, I think, still has a long way to go as far as getting weapons. And, Stephon Diggs, it's a good pickup. We'll see how much he does this season. But, he was pretty quiet in week 1. And I don't think you can expect him to be super loud either, especially these first few weeks coming off that ACL injury. So, yeah, it's going to need to be, it's going to need to be a nice rebound for the Patriots this weekend. And it'll probably be a close game either way. But the Patriots, I think the takeaway from this weekend is the Patriots absolutely need a win this weekend. I don't think you can lose to the Dolphins and then expect to come back home and beat Pittsburgh in week 3, especially with the way they looked in week 1. Aaron Rodgers actually looked pretty good. Again, it was against his old team, so maybe there was some extra motivation behind playing against the Jets. But, I don't know. I don't know what if they start 0-2, to me they're in a really bad spot. So they have to come away with a win this week. I think if you come away with a win this week, I think 9-8 is still attainable. I wouldn't change my opinion on that. If you go 2-2 in September, you get out of September 2-2. September has typically not been a great month for the Patriots. There have not been a lot of years where the Patriots have, really performed super well in September. And a lot of the years where they've typically fizzled out at the end of the season. So, we'll see what happens. But anyway, that's kind of our topic of the Patriots this week. This might be kind of a shorter first episode. So there's only so much to talk about when it comes to the Patriots that hasn't really already been said. They're going to have to get a win this weekend. They're going to have to grind out one on the road in Miami. Always a tough place to play. So now we shift to the Red Sox, a team that is a lot further into their season. In fact, they're almost done. This will be game 148 tonight as they open up a 3-game weekend series at home against their rivals, the New York Yankees. And this is a big series, understatement of the century. The Red Sox are at the moment entering a half game back of the Yankees for second place in the AL East. They are also behind them for the first wild card spot. The Red Sox currently hold the second wild card spot over the Yankees, but they are a half game back, of course, of that as well. The Red Sox are 8.5 now up on Tampa Bay, who was the fourth place team. So I think it's needless to say that Tampa Bay will not catch them. They do have one more series against the Rays, and that will be down in Tampa. I was going to say St. Pete, but it actually is in Tampa with the Rays not playing at Tropicana Field this year. Anyhow, let's talk a little bit about this upcoming Red Sox series. The Red Sox are coming off of this week, well, overall, a 3-3 road trip out west. First, they went to Arizona, then they went to Sacramento to take on the A's. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Diamondbacks, and were on the verge of being swept actually on Sunday. They were down 3-1 entering the top of the 7th inning, but they rallied in that top of the 7th to take a 4-3 lead thanks to a 2-run scoring two-base error actually on the Diamondbacks against Connor Wong, who hit a ground ball to third, which was kind of bobbled, but it really should have ended the inning. It was a bad throw from the third baseman and allowed 2 Red Sox runs to score after they were trailing 3-2. They took a 4-3 lead. Zach Kelly comes in the bottom of the 7th, and he surrenders a D-backs run with 1 out to tie the game. The D-backs, though, the Red Sox then go to Garrett Whitlock. The Diamondbacks execute successfully a double steal with 1 out and Geraldo Perdomo at the plate. But thankfully, Garrett Whitlock is able to strike out Perdomo and then get the next guy. I think it was Ketel Marte to pop out in foul territory to end the inning. So a couple of potentially dangerous bats there that he faced and was able to get out of the inning with the game still tied. Top half of the 9th inning, it's still tied at 4. Whitlock pitched a scoreless bottom of the 8th as well. And, kind of an unsung hero, I'd say at this point in the season, is Nick Sogard, who was very unheralded coming up. Came up kind of in place came up for the injured Roman Anthony, but he came through in a pinch hit spot with 2 outs, man at first and second, and he drives in 2 to clear the bases. A bases clearing double to give the Red Sox a 7-4 lead. Carlos Narvaez would come up to drive him in the next batter to make it 7-4. So the Red Sox, and of course Chapman nailed the door shut. He actually struck out 4 in the bottom of the 9th because of a strikeout wild pitch. So he struck out every hitter he faced in the 9th inning. And the Red Sox, yes, while they lost the series, came away with, I think, a very important win in their season. A game that if they lose, the talks were, especially after the Roman Anthony injury, the talks were that the Red Sox were starting to fade. That, and I was saying it last week, just shows how quick kind of baseball can change on a whim. But I was saying last week that, people were talking about, how are the Red Sox going to do, especially if they don't have Roman Anthony in the playoffs. I just wanted them to get to the playoffs first. And of course, that's not locked up still. But I think you're feeling like you're in better shape now than you were certainly heading into last Sunday's game. And of course, then the Red Sox go on the road, or they stay on the road. They travel back to California, to Sacramento, their final West Coast series of the season. It feels like they've been on the West Coast a lot, especially here in this second half of the season. They had to go to San Diego. There was another team they had to go to. Well, yeah, they had to go to the Giants back in, I think, June. So really kind of the midway to the second half part of the baseball season, the Red Sox have really felt like been on the West Coast a lot. But finally, they're done with that. They wrap it up by taking 2 out of 3 in Sacramento. Unfortunately, they could not take the final game. They won the first 2 in shutouts, 7-0 on Monday night with Garrett Crochet on the mound. And Garrett Crochet, that was a big start for him, a nice rebound. And then night 2, kind of an unknown because they put out a guy they had just called up, their number 6 prospect, Connolly Early. And Connolly Early has a tremendous MLB debut. Goes 5 innings, strikes out a MLB debut record 11 for the Red Sox. And that ties an MLB record set by another Red Sox pitcher, I forget his name, back in 1977. So yeah, Connolly Early really surprises. Your offense kind of picks you up again. In fact, they got out to a very early 4-0 lead in the top of the first on Tuesday night. And the game was pretty much over from there. Early took the rest of it. Red Sox go on to win 6-0 in that one. And then Wednesday, the series finale, which is a day game, 3:35 start out in Sacramento. Or 12:35 start for them locally, 3:35 start here on the East Coast. And the Red Sox, kind of an iffy game there. Peyton Tolley again got the start. He gave up a couple home runs. He only went 2 innings. But, the Red Sox offense fought back kind of when they had to. They did take a 3-2 lead at one point, but then fell behind, I think, in the bottom of the fifth. They let up a couple of runs for the A's. That made it 4-3. The A's held that lead until the top of the ninth inning. And Rob Refsnyder, who has, again, just been a very clutch bat for the Red Sox this season once again, off the bench with a game-tying double in the top of the ninth to drive in, I think, Carlos Narvaez from first base after he took a walk. And that tied the game at 4. Unfortunately, though, Aroldis Chapman, his almost invincible streak finally came to an end. He let up, I think, a leadoff double to Shea Langoliers. Then there was a ground ball to move Langoliers over to third with 1 out. And then I think it was Lawrence Butler who was able to get another hit off of him, base hit, walk-off single for the A's in the final game of the series. So the Red Sox lose that one in kind of a heartbreaking fashion, but they got the day off yesterday, of course, a travel day to head back to Boston, and now they're back at Fenway this weekend where we're talking about to take on the New York Yankees and the final series of the regular season for the Red Sox against their hated rivals. They have dominated this rivalry this season to this point. They're 8-2 on the year against the Yankees. They did lose the last one, which capped off a 4-game series back on, I think it was August 24th. That was Sunday Night Baseball, and they fell to the Yankees in that one 7-2, but the Yankees avoiding the sweep. And that was the first win that the Yankees had since, I think, the first game of the season between these two teams at Yankee Stadium. So the Red Sox, needless to say, had dominated this rivalry. They had won 8 in a row after that loss to open the season against the Bronx Bombers. And there's a small sample size to go off of for the Red Sox against the Yankees at Fenway this year, as that series came back in the middle of June. In fact, right after that series is when the Red Sox traded Rafael Devers. But the Red Sox in that series swept the Yankees. They swept them in order. The final game was a 2-0 shutout win at home over Max Fried. And, of course, that was the day the Red Sox traded the Yankees. Raffy actually hit a solo homer in that game, I think in like the bottom of the 6th to the bottom of the 7th to push the lead from 1-2. So, a very small sample size. It's been a while since the Red Sox and Yankees have played at Fenway Park. And Roman Anthony, of course, will not be in the Red Sox lineup this series. That's the difference between the last one and this one. But this is a big series, a huge series for the Red Sox. Also an equally big series for the Yankees, because this could determine who ends up with the top wildcard spot. I don't think either of these teams, I mean, it's still a chance. The Red Sox 3.5 back, the Yankees 3 back of the Blue Jays. But I think it's probably pretty unlikely that these two teams are going to catch Toronto. Either of these two are going to catch Toronto before the season's over, barring a collapse, I'd say, for the Blue Jays. And if these teams can just keep winning consistently, then that might happen. But I don't know if it's realistic at this point. We're in game 148 for the Red Sox. After tonight, there'll be 12 games left to play in the regular season. Or excuse me, not 12. There'll be 13 left to play in the regular season. Or 14. So really just 2 weeks left of games for both of these teams after this weekend. But again, the Red Sox have to at least win this series. They have to find a way to, a sweep, maybe not, but at least take 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. If you can do that, then I think, they'll move them a game total in the standings, so they're a half game up on the Yankees. Now, obviously, a sweep would be big. A sweep would put you 2.5 up on the Yankees and almost certainly maybe put them out of reach to be able to get second place. Although the Yankees do have one game kind of in hand, because entering last night, they had played 2 less games than the Red Sox. The Red Sox got the night off. The Yankees did play the Tigers, and even though they lost 2 out of 3, they blew out the Tigers last night to avoid the sweep. So that helped them gain, a half game lead on the Red Sox. Red Sox were, if the Red Sox had gotten a loss out of the Yankees last night, they'd be on the other side. They'd be a half game up entering this series. So that was a big win last night for the Yankees. But the Red Sox have, for the most part this season, had their number, and they are certainly hoping that that's going to continue. Look kind of at the pitching matchups for this series tonight. For New York, it is Luis Gil going up against Lucas Giolito for the Red Sox. Giolito has been really a very pleasant surprise this year for Boston. 10-3 with a 3.38 ERA, 107 Ks. He was a guy that the Red Sox signed, I think, as a free agent after the 2023 season. He didn't pitch at all last year because of Tommy John surgery. Got hurt in spring training. But this year has just been tremendous. Looking a lot like the Lucas Giolito of kind of a few years that he had with the White Sox. And yeah, he's just been great. Luis Gil has also been pretty good for the Yankees. Hasn't pitched that much this year due to injury, but 3-1 with a 3.31. He has some good strikeout stuff. And we're going to take a look at Gil's, his last 7 games. Those are the only games he's played in. He started 7 games this season. His last time out, though, against Toronto, pretty good start back on September 6th. 6 innings and 1 earned. He'll have 3 hits. But the only thing in that start for him, he walked 4 and he struck out just 1. So this is a guy who usually will pile up the strikeouts a little bit. You go back to his start before that, August 31st at the White Sox. He went 5 1/3, gave up a couple earned runs, and struck out 7 and walked 2. So it seems like walks have been a little bit more of an issue for him lately. So maybe the Red Sox can capitalize on that tonight. But for Giolito, his last start was, I can't remember, was it last Sunday? Yes, it was last Sunday at Arizona. Not his best start. 5 innings. Did give up a couple earned runs, although not horrible. That was last Saturday. Yeah, last Saturday night out in Arizona. 5 innings, 7 hits, couple earned runs, 3 walks, and 2 Ks. That's another concern with Giolito lately, has been the walks, and we saw that back on Sunday, August 31st in the finale against the Pirates. The Red Sox were able to avoid a sweep, but, he went 6, but he walked 5, and he struck out 6. So didn't allow a lot of hits either in that game. Allowed 3 hits, to Pittsburgh. Pretty light hitting offensive team. But again, the concern is the walks, I think, lately with Giolito. And he's going to have to keep it down tonight against the Yankees. Now, that game tonight will be broadcast on Apple TV Plus, so it is a national game. Of course, you have to have an Apple TV Plus subscription. The only Red Sox game this weekend that will be televised on NESN will be tomorrow in the late afternoon. And once again, tomorrow evening's matchup, I guess, late afternoon, is Max Fried against Brian Bayo. And that was, again, the matchup that we saw back at Fenway Park. And that was on the day that the Red Sox traded Rafael Devers back on June 15th. So Fried this year, 16-5, a 3.02. I think his ERA has been coming down a little bit. Although his last 7 games, he is 4-1, but with a 4.29 ERA. So his ERA has really ballooned since the start of the year. He was pitching outstanding at the start of the year, but it's kind of slowed down quite a bit in that category. And Brian Bayo has also had a tremendous year for the Red Sox, by far a career year to this point. He's 11-6 with a 3.12. And his career regular season numbers are not that great overall, going back. Of course, that's including before this season, but he's lowered his overall number to 4.05 ERA. In his last 7, he's 4-1 with a 2.95. Has struck out 31, walked just 10. So that's another big thing with Bayo, he's limiting the walks. When he's pitching well, he's limiting those walks. But anyway, that's game 2 of the series tomorrow at 4:10. And the final game of the series will be on Sunday Night Baseball. And that's going to be for the Yankees, Will Warren taking on Red Sox ace Garrett Crochet. So, what do I think will happen this series for the Red Sox? I am cautiously optimistic, but I think they can take 2 out of 3 this weekend from the Yankees, and I think they will. The Yankees have I don't think they're going to sweep the Yankees because I think this is also a desperation. This is a big series for the Yankees too, but I do think they can take 2 out of 3. I think they can win. I would say if you know, now we're trying to pick out which game the Red Sox are going to lose. I could see the Red Sox losing. I'm going to go tonight. I'm going to go the Red Sox will lose tonight, the first game of the series. Now, yes, I know Lucas Giolito has been very good. I know tomorrow night the Red Sox are facing probably the best pitcher that they're going to face this weekend in Max Fried. But tomorrow night, Brian Bayo is on the mound, and Brian Bayo's career numbers against the Yankees are outstanding. So I'm not gonna say he's gonna falter this time. I'm gonna say he's gonna continue to be great against the Yankees. I think his career ERA against New York is under 2. So I think the Red Sox they might drop tonight. They're gonna come away with a winning game 2. And I think Garrett Crochet is gonna get them the series win on Sunday Night Baseball against Will Warren. And I know Warren has actually been pitching better lately too, but the Red Sox have had his number this year, especially the last time out. I think they shelled him. That was in the middle of that series where the Red Sox took 3 out of 4 in the Bronx back in late August. So I think the Red Sox are going to come away with 2 out of 3. Now the next series, so that would put them theoretically a game and a half game over the Yankees heading into this next coming week. And again, there's only 2 weeks of games left. And obviously not 2 total weeks, not like 14 total days. The Red Sox will have some off days mixed in there. In fact, I think they have Monday off. Yes, they do. The Red Sox have Monday off. But again, the Yankees don't have Monday off. So that's another day where the Yankees are going to have a chance to gain half a game on the Red Sox or potentially lose half a game on the Red Sox. And the Yankees go to Minnesota. So I would expect them to win that. So that's why this series is big for the Red Sox. Because this is your last shot head to head against the Yankees this season. You've obviously been very good against them this year, but that doesn't matter entering this series. You have to come away with 2 out of 3. And I think they can, and I think they probably will. All right, so now we go to previewing the Red Sox games next week, and really nothing new. They're going to have not the Oakland A's, just the Athletics. The homeless A's right now, as they're in Sacramento. So they're going to have them, I think, for 3. That's going to start on Tuesday. Again, the Red Sox have Monday off. So Tuesday the 16th, they'll host the A's for the first of 3. Of course, pitching matchups are not out yet for those series, so we'll kind of recap it, I think, next week after that series is up. And then next Friday when we come on the air, we will be talking about the Red Sox and the Rays. The Red Sox will be going out to Tampa, their final bout this season with Tampa Bay. And the Red Sox have, once again, much like the Yankees, have handled the Rays this year. They're 8-2 against Tampa Bay. But the last time they faced them before next week, and we'll talk about that, I think, on the next episode a little bit more. The last time they faced them was right before the All-Star break back in early July. So, needless to say, it's been a while since the Red Sox and Rays have played. We'll have kind of more of a recap there next week. And we're going to see, obviously, how this weekend goes and how that 3-game set against the A's goes next week. And we'll kind of recap that in our next episode of the Monster and the Lighthouse as well. I do want to mention some... I want to mention some college football as well before we get off the air here today. Let's kind of look at some of the games that are coming up this weekend. You have Wisconsin at Alabama. Well, tonight you have Indiana State at Indiana. I expect Indiana obviously to come away with a win there. Wisconsin and Alabama. It's at Alabama. Alabama obviously coming off the disastrous week 1 loss against Florida State. They rebounded last week, but it was against some no-name team. So they're 1-1. Clemson, Georgia Tech. This should be an interesting one tomorrow down in Atlanta. Georgia and Tennessee, though, that is probably, one of the two big matchups this weekend. We'll get to the other one in just a second. Georgia and Tennessee down in Knoxville, Rocky Top. Georgia, a battle of a couple 2-0 squads so far. Who do I like in that one? It's tough. I think Georgia is good. I think they're still a good team. However, I think fairly, a lot of people have pointed out that Gunnar Stockton, for all the criticisms that Carson Beck got last year when he was in Georgia, I still think Carson Beck is a better quarterback than Gunnar Stockton. Tennessee at home at Neyland Stadium, that's always a tough place to play. I think I like the Volunteers. I think I like Tennessee in that one tomorrow. It's technically an upset. Tennessee is ranked 15th. Georgia is 6th. But I think I like the Volunteers to come out on top of that one. South Florida and Miami is another ranked matchup tomorrow. Not one that I think many expected to be a ranked matchup going into the start of the year, but both of those teams are 2-0. South Florida is now ranked 18th. Miami is ranked 5th. But I do expect the Hurricanes at their home field. Carson Beck, to his credit, has played very well to start the year. I think Miami comes out on top of that one. And the last ranked matchup of week 3 of college football is tomorrow night at Notre Dame Stadium. My team, the Fighting Irish, take on the number 16 ranked Texas A&M Aggies, who are 2-0. Notre Dame has had kind of a weird start to the season. They dropped their week 1 game at Miami 27-24, but a very good game. So they were 0-1, but they had a bye week last week. So kind of a weird spot to have a bye week. But Notre Dame coming off a bye at home against Texas A&M, a team that they opened last season with, and opened with I forget how much they beat them by. I think it was by 10. I want to say it was like 23-13. Notre Dame over Texas A&M down at Kyle Field last year to open the year. So I will give a actual numbers prediction in that one. I think Notre Dame will win. Now, Notre Dame has talked about giving CJ Carr kind of more of a, kind of letting him off the leash this week, letting him throw the ball a little bit more, letting him throw it a little bit deeper. I think CJ Carr is going to be a good quarterback for Notre Dame. Again, it was just 1 week, but I'm not saying he was perfect. Obviously, they lost the game, but I liked what I saw. I liked his poise that he had there down in Miami, in a hostile environment. I think Notre Dame will win tomorrow night at home against Texas A&M. Former, old friend, I think it's Mike Elko is their head coach. I think Notre Dame will come out on top in that one. And my final score, I'm going to go Notre Dame. I'm going to say they put up 31. We're going to Notre Dame 31 and Texas A&M. I'll go Notre Dame 31, Texas A&M 20. I think that's a fair prediction. I think Notre Dame, they're at home. This is a big game for them too. I mean, it's a big game for A&M on the road, but it's a big game for Notre Dame. Trying to get back to, 1-1. Again, I think having a bye week 2 is odd, but it also gives the team kind of a chance to relax, to get their rest. And I know it's so early in the year still, but I think that's an advantage for them coming in. And obviously they're gonna want to get the season at home off to a much better start than they did last year when they got upset massively by Northern Illinois in week 2. And Marcus Freeman, historically, in Notre Dame home openers, again, this is his 4th season at the helm, but as head coach of Notre Dame in home openers, he's 1-2. 22, they lost to Marshall. That was another upset. 23, obviously. 23, I think they played like Tennessee State in their home opener, so that was an easy win. But, then last year, the big one, the Northern Illinois upset. So I think Notre Dame, though, I think Marcus Freeman will get to 2-2 as head coach of the Irish in home openers. I like Notre Dame tomorrow, 31-20 over Texas A&M, and getting to 1-1, and then next week they'll get to play Purdue at home. So that will conclude this pilot episode of The Monster and the Lighthouse. Thank you so much for joining. I'm your host, Ryan Goodwin. Have a safe and good weekend, and we'll see you in the next show next Friday, September 19th. Thank you.